Alrighty, everybody, this is interview number 2. We're coming to you live from the downtown east side, Top Recovery Radio, every Thursday. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com. Well, you're already liking us because you're watching us on Facebook. So we come to you live every Thursday with my co-host, Francis Stone. Hi, Francis. And Darren, who's holding the camera right now. And we're going to be going live on the radio in about 2 seconds. Thanks for watching.
And we're back on Talk Recovery, where you're listening to us live. Vancouver's co-op radio station, CFRO 100.5 FM. It's weird when you talk into the microphone without your headphones on. I mean, I can hear myself, but now I can hear myself.
Now you can hear yourself.
I can really hear myself. I get to listen to my voice. We all get to listen to our voices talk, and I'm used to mine by now. It's good. Anyway.
4 years of a show will do that for you.
I guess so. Another level of self-centeredness now that I like my own voice. We are live in studio with our segment of personal stories. It's been great having people come in, taking the time, sharing their story, and as Fred here exclaimed, I'm an open book. And I mean, I gotta say, I appreciate. You know, I don't think it's an easy decision, and I don't think it's one that should be taken lightly, and I think it requires some stamina, some consistency, and some time before, you know, an individual is able to say, hey, I'm an open book. But it's so important, I mean, especially coming through the environment we come through, to come into the studio, and I still get phone calls in my life from people that don't know what to do, and because I became an open book at one point in my life, I get those phone calls, and I get to you know, do what I can to give some direction. So appreciate you being here, Fred. Thanks for coming in.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. Yeah. Absolutely.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the beginnings, if we can speak about sort of, you know, your addiction and your life leading up to your recovery.
Well, it depends on how far back you want to go with it. I mean, I've been clean 18 months this time around, but it's not my first kick at the can either. I mean, my first real good kick at recovery was back in 2000, and that was after several years of grinding it out in the downtown east side down here. You know. But even that was kind of a progressive road that led me to this particular spot down here, and I you know, it's a long story that kind of, you know, that I'm pretty well, you know, I'm pretty well versed in how I got there. I've done a lot of work and a lot of research and a lot of written work, 12-step work, discussion, as into how I got to be the way I am, you know, and what happened with the nature of my disease and where it took me.
So, okay, so let's take advantage of that part of your story. I mean, you weren't born in the downtown east side. You didn't grow up here.
No.
Where are you from?
I grew up in Richmond. With, you know, essentially with my mom and my brother, you know. From the time I was 10, it was the three of us. My father... he was an alcoholic. He died alcoholic, and you know, and that's not the way that my mom raised us. You know, I was raised in a healthy home. My mom worked her ass off and provided everything that my brother and I could have wanted. You know, there was nothing that I was missing in my life. I had all the sports I wanted to play. I had all the activities I wanted to do. I played all the music I wanted to play. You know, piano, drums, vocal jazz ensemble. I traveled with the music. I traveled with the sports. You know, we went on trips as a family. There was nothing that I was missing in my life as far as all of that family stuff went.
So you weren't, you know, sort of one that was oppressed or you know, given up as a young child or foster care.
No.
I mean,
No.
You know, like sort of your stereotypical stories as to how you wind up on the street and drug addicted.
The toughest part about my childhood that I could say that really kind of sticks out and really sticks in my craw as something that I really had to deal with was what actually happened when my father left. which was he didn't just move out of the house. He moved a block and a half away, in with another woman and her 2 kids, and really didn't spend any more time with my brother and I. Like, there was very, very little, and when he did, he was drinking, and that's basically what that was. And that was what I could say was probably the most difficult, painful thing that happened in my childhood. As far as my home life with my mom goes, there was nothing that I was missing.
Right. But there's events that change us.
Absolutely, and that was a big one.
Send us in a different direction. Usually at times when we don't know what we're supposed to do, we don't have the right, sort of psychological, perspectives on how to, how to cope with these situations. And quite often, a typical story is that you find some relief in, using the socialness of it all. The relief it does give one,
and part of and for me enough, the using also came along with the friends that I chose at the time too. I mean, I had all the really positive influences with the music and the sports, but it was also a very tough neighborhood where there was a lot of like, you had to knuckle up, you had to have some sand to grow up in the neighborhood that we did. And the friends that I chose, we felt a sort of security amongst one another, where we were able to kind of stand up for one another, and we had a bit of security, and there was getting loaded and partying that came along with that, and I felt a lot of comfort in that whole entire scene.
So, needless to say, pretty difficult for someone to tell you that's all got to end, that's all got to stop. You have to change everything.
That took a long time for me to figure out.
Right. As it does.
Yeah.
So, what was it like for you coming down here today? I mean, most people wouldn't suggest, coming back into this area if you'd spent some time down here before. Do you have some feelings around it?
Well, yeah. I mean, to me, it's familiar. This scene that's out there. This is, in the 90s and the worst parts of my addiction. This is what I lived with on a day-to-day basis. This was my life. That's what we saw, what you guys talked about at the beginning of the show. That's what I saw every day. Every day, that was my life, and at the end of the 90s, before I got clean the first time and really got a good crack at recovery, and that's what I saw. So, Nick and I kind of looked at each other and we kind of just took a deep breath on our way in as we walked past all of it, and we're just like, man, you know what? Thank God it's not us today, because we're no different than those people, except that we're just not using today. Mm-hmm. I can speak for myself. I'm no different than those guys, those men and women that are out there. I'm just not using today. Thank God for that.
So you said you had some clean time, that you had gone through recovery previously to this 18 months.
Yep.
How much time?
Just about 6 years, almost 6 years, yeah.
So 6 years, I mean, that's quite a bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us a little bit of insight into, why? See, a lot of people get mixed up with this, addiction is a choice, right? All these, these people outside our doorway here, they're all choosing to be down here. And I think there's just some naivety around what people really say and what they mean. And, I think you do lose your ability to make healthy choices and good decisions, and you're caught up in habits over years and years and years, and
yeah.
You get comfortable in where you're at, and it's hard. Like just if anybody wonders how hard it is, just if you're right-handed, just do everything left-handed today, and you'll know what I mean by how difficult it is to just change that thing, that habit. And I'm talking habits developed over a lifetime.
Yeah.
So now that you're 6 years clean, though, you have to take some responsibility to having made the choice to go back into addiction. What was going on or wasn't going on?
Well, I mean, my recovery in the first, my first shot at that, it was really, really good. I'd, got married, had 2 amazing children, beautiful daughters, successful work. I was very good at work, very successful at it, and it was through the, just getting grabbing life by the horns again, and really feeling like I had control of things again. I figured I got this now. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
I'm good to go, and I progressively separated myself from the basics of recovery that we learn to do, like going to meetings, staying connected to people, continuing to do the steps, helping newcomers, reaching out and being of service to other people and other addicts. And I stopped doing all of those things in a progressive way until, further and further along the way where, picking up again just kind of made sense. And there's the insanity of it. Like how insane when you take a look at the people that are out on that sidewalk, when that was me, when it makes sense to pick up again, that's insane. Like that just that just doesn't make any. It's insane.
But you're not under the influence while you're making that insane choice.
That's true. Not at all.
You're under, what normal people would say as emotional distress or, psychological.
There was lots of life stuff going on, with the marriage, with the kids, with the there's financial pressures and job changes and family dynamics stuff changing with the in-laws and all sorts of stuff were happening. The life on life terms cliche that we hear, all of that stuff was going on, but I wasn't working any type of a program in my life in order to deal with those things anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it just became, it just made sense that I can handle one.
Because a lot of people would, make the changes necessary to live an abstinent life, and then, pursue some goals, pursue some dreams. We heard Nick talk about it, traveling, the relationship change in his life. Like those seem like things that would be more of an investment to continue on. So
right.
You're describing like having the daughters, beautiful daughters.
Beautiful, yep.
And
best thing to ever happen to me.
So what are
best
listeners?
thing I've ever done.
Right, and so are listeners, people that don't understand addiction and recovery. It can, all of those beautiful things can become less prioritized, less important than the desire to get out of your own feelings.
For sure. Yep.
But what you're saying is that only happens if you stop taking care of yourself.
That's absolutely right. Like recovery for me, what I've learned over the last little while since having been back to the program for a little bit of time now, is that it has to continue to be my number one priority, because I've seen it happen where it has been in the past where I did a lot of work in recovery, and then as it slips away, using again becomes more important than the best thing I've ever done with my life, which was my two daughters. Mm-hmm. And again, that's insane. Mm-hmm. Insane. It just doesn't make it. There's no other word for it for me.
But that's a relapse. That's what people talk about. Yep. When they change their life and they get clean, they get abstinent. They do some things in their life. They accumulate. Financial gain, spiritual gain.
I had all that stuff going on.
And then, especially, people like, I don't know what happened. He just, all of a sudden, he got loaded and he's using again. And it's like, no, some pretty realistic things are happening. It doesn't just sort of, you hear the adage in the program, your addiction's doing push-ups out in the parking lot, like as if it's this thing that we're not in control of. And I want to talk to people that have gone through an amassed clean time, abstinent, clean time, worthwhile time, and gave it up. That it didn't just happen, that there was, some irresponsibility, if you want to call it that, on your part for not taking care of yourself.
That's right. Yep.
Okay? So what's the best thing you're doing for yourself in as far as taking care of yourself and your life right now?
Connection. I'm with other people and I'm staying busy and I'm investing in other people. I'm taking the time to make sure that I am participating in what other people are doing, reaching out and making sure that I'm involved in new guys, new men that are coming into the program, and participating and investing in what they have going on. Making sure that I am around other people in recovery, making sure that I volunteer, making sure that I'm reaching out and being of service, making sure that I'm doing all of those things that I first let go of, that those are priority to me.
It really sounds like that's a sense of purpose.
Absolutely.
Right? And you fit obviously you fit your daughters in there.
Oh, absolutely. Being a father is absolutely the biggest joy in my life going right now. Yeah, it's like the redemption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. What are their names?
Caitlin and Abigail.
Nice. Well, I mean, I hope we have a little bit of some insight into, you know, someone that's been able to change their life, and that I think, you know, it's pretty important that relapse isn't, you know, as sometimes you hear, inevitable. You know, that I think once you're clean, you're in control of whether or not you continue to take care of yourself and not. And I really appreciate that message that you brought here today. So thanks for coming in, Fred.
Thanks for being on the show, Fred.
Thank you
Personal
for having
story
me.
time. If you want to hear your personal story on the radio and you've got something to share, let us know on Facebook, and go to facebook.com/talkrecoveryvancouver. And before we end today's show, we'll just want to remind everybody 2 big recovery events coming up September 7th and September 8th. The Recovery Capital Conference of Canada, and you can go to that website to learn all about the speakers. That's an educational tool for people that work in healthcare and manage employees. And then we've got a great community event called Recovery Day BC. It's taking place on September 9th in New Westminster, 6 and 6. We have sold out of exhibitor booths. We have over 75 mental health and wellness information booths and food trucks. Recovery Day is going to be just an amazing event this year. So please come check it out, recoverydaybc.com. And Darren, how are we finishing off the show today?
Oh, little Bob Seger for us today. Nice little song called "You'll Accompany Me."
Thanks for listening, everybody. Whoops.